Plants, they're everywhere. But what do they need? Plants need air to photosynthesize, to turn food into energy. There's no air on the moon, and there are no plants. Plants also need light. Without light, the leaves can't photosynthesize and create energy for the plant, and it will eventually die. Plants also need water. They can catch this in their leaves from rain and then suck it up through their roots and through their straw-like stems. Plants need soil to grow. It gives the roots something to cling onto, something to hold onto to keep them stable. Soil is also really good food for the plants, helping them to grow. Another thing plants need is room. If there's not enough room, then the plants can't grow very big, and they might even die. So, what do plants need? Well, air, light, water, nutrients, room to grow, and warmth. Let's go into the science lab and talk about some experiments we're going to run together over the next few weeks. And here we are. Now, let's just talk about the experiments we'll be doing together this week. Everyone will be getting a package sometime in the next few days, and in your package will be a set of science equipment, and it will have a label on it telling you what you need to do for your individual experiment, because we're all doing slightly different ones. Now, for our different ones, we're going to be growing cress, like you might find in an egg and cress sandwich. And it comes these tiny little seeds, ever so small. Now, you all have a foiled tray. You all have some cotton wool to be a bed for the seeds. What I'd like you to do is damp the cotton wool with just some water from the tap. And then sprinkle on the seeds. So far, so good. You can use all the seeds. I would like you to use most of the seeds because it's such a small plant. We do need a lot of seeds going in here. So what I've done, I've put my seeds out of the packet into the cotton wool and I've just damped them down. So I've got some seeds on my cotton wool ready to grow. Now, this is where things get different for different people. Now, on my label, it said I need to give it those things, but no water. So I can put it on a windowsill so it has light. I can make sure it's nice and warm in the room it's in, but I cannot give it any water because it said on my label, no water. So for my experiment for the cress, no water. Some of you will have no heat, no warmth. For that, I would like you to put your little cress experiment in the fridge. Some of you will have no light, and I would like you to put your little cress experiments in a dark place like the back of a cupboard. If it is in the fridge or in a cupboard, you're still allowed to give it water though. Every couple of days, make sure it's getting enough to keep it damp so it can keep growing. Because remember, when we're doing experiments, we're only allowed to change one variable, one thing which changes. And so the thing that we are changing, if it's in a dark place, is the light. So we have to keep the water, keep still. So we have to still keep giving it water. The thing we're changing it is the heat. We have to still keep giving it water. So to recap, some people in their little cress growing experiment will be growing their cress in a dark cupboard, but with everything else. Some people will be growing it in the fridge, but still giving it everything else. Some people will be growing it on a windowsill, but with no water. And some people will be growing it with everything. And then we're going to compare and see what happens and see what taking away some of those things does to these plants. We can show each other. The second experiment, we're all going to do the same thing. Everybody has a glass jar, and inside the glass jar is some blotting paper. The blotting paper is very thick paper that you would use to damp down and stop ink from smudging if you had a very inky pen. We don't use it so much anymore for writing, but it's very good for carrying water, and that's what we're going to use it for in our glass jars. Inside the glass jar is also a bean seed. Very exciting. We're all going to have a go at growing this little seed and see what happens. Now, to do that, step one, some water in your jar. Just out of the tap, just cold water, and just a little bit in the bottom, and the blotting paper will start absorbing the water and carrying it upwards. And you may also need a little bit of water to damp your blotting paper with. And then you're going to take your seed, you're going to poke it, perhaps with a pencil. You might need to use a pencil just to move the blotting paper a bit. You're going to put it down into your jar, and the blotting paper should hopefully keep it in place against the side of the jar. If you need to, take a pencil and fiddle around with it, and maybe take a little bit of water and just damp down around the seed. And the bean seed should hopefully start to sprout, and we'll be able to see the roots coming out and the shoot coming out and see how it develops. So take your seed with the water in the jar and put it in the sunlight, somewhere there's plenty of air, there's plenty of light. Top up the water every couple of days if you need to, and see what happens. I would love to see who manages to make the best bean plant. Now, there are a few other interesting things in your bags as well. You will have a book, because I know that handwriting is difficult to do without handwriting paper. And in your handwriting books, the front cover of each one is a list of words, year 1 words, year 2 words, and the year 3 words, depending on your level of challenge that you want to give yourself for that day. If you practice a couple of words handwriting every day, it all adds up and makes a big difference. This might be a good task to do sometimes when you know you need to do something for school, but you're too tired or it's too awkward to go onto remote school and find one of the longer tasks. There's also going to be a class reader. We're all going to read this together. Don't read this as a reading book, save it. We're going to do a session on class reader every week on Zoom. So save this, only read it on Zoom in session times. There'll be another book, a book about the Stone Age. They're all going to be different. Some of them are going to be perhaps more useful than others. I've tried to match books with people to give you something which you might enjoy. Please look after the books. Some of them are mine, some of them belong to West Sussex. So either way, you have to be really careful with them. Don't lose them, look after them. From when Mrs. Carey adopted the giraffe and the snow leopard for our school, there's also a colouring sheet that you didn't get to have, and a little sticker each from different animals from Marwell Zoo. And there's also a sealed envelope. These sealed envelopes are only to be opened when you start a new reading book. And when you do, hopefully there's something useful inside there for you. Plus 1 or 2 other mystery surprises. That's everything for today. Thank you for logging in. Thank you for finding this video and having a go at those experiments when you get your resources through. I'll see you here next week to learn a little bit more about plants and what they're made of. Time for our plant fact of the week. I said that plants need water, and they do, but some need a lot less water than others. There's one plant in particular that needs very little water to survive. Adapted to its desert conditions, when it gets very dry, it curls up into a ball and dries out. Eventually, if water still doesn't come, then the plant pulls up its own roots and rolls around like a ball. Once it finds some more water, it puts its roots down and it begins to unfurl back into the plant. This is what you can see happening here. This plant is sometimes called a dinosaur plant, and it can survive for several years without any water.